I believe that Jan Blachowicz will beat Jon Jones if they ever fight each other, and I also believe that Jon Jones versus Jan Blachowicz could be taking place sooner than people think, because if Jon Jones is unsuccessful in his heavyweight debut and Jan Blachowicz beats a guy like Glover Teixeira, who is rightfully the next in line for the title shot, if Jan Blachowicz establishes himself as a dominant light heavyweight champion and Jon Jones fails in his heavyweight debut, because I think the game plan of Jon Jones's career is pretty simple right now: take the heavyweight belt, retire as the go out on top and make a big payday as well. If he is unsuccessful at heavyweight, I would not put it past Jon Jones looking to maybe try and rebuild himself in that light heavyweight division against Jan Blachowicz, and recently they've been talking about each other and a possible matchup with each other. Jan Blachowicz said he's willing to fight Jon Jones. Jon Jones mentioned that, yes, Jan Blachowicz is mentioning my name like all the other light heavyweight champions that get it, like referencing back to DC, but I feel like there's maybe a storyline brewing, and Jan Blachowicz, if he does assert himself as the dominant guy at light heavyweight, could be looking to get a rebounding Jon Jones back at light heavyweight, and that fight could happen down the line, and I believe that Jan Blachowicz would beat him. I really do. After watching the Dominic Reyes performance and also watching the Israel Adesanya performance and watching the last few performances of Jon Jones in that light heavyweight division, I think it's very clear to me that Jan Blachowicz would beat Jon Jones. I believe the fight would be a stand-up matchup, and I think Jan Blachowicz would have a lot of advantage over Jon Jones, because before the Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz fight at UFC 259, where not only did Jan Blachowicz beat Israel Adesanya almost every round, if you have eyes, and don't listen to the commentary as well, because that was swaying some things another way. But let's stick to the fight for now and not get into the commentary, because I could fucking vent for another 10 minutes about that. But even still, let's stick to the fucking topic at hand. Jan Blachowicz outstruck Israel Adesanya for the first 3 rounds of that bout, and even did it as the rounds went on, mixed in his takedowns well. And I thought going into the Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz fight that if Israel Adesanya was successful, Jon Jones maybe could beat Israel Adesanya, but he sure as hell doesn't want anything to do with him on the feet. I thought Jon Jones would be successful against Israel Adesanya if they ever did fight each other and there was no Jan Blachowicz and Adesanya was moving up to take on Jon Jones at UFC 259, that Jones would have to use his grappling to get the win, because Israel Adesanya would be a little bit too tricky on the feet and could maybe catch him in some weird moments. And a lot of people were under that impression as well, and I think we need to start learning from some changes in the history of the sport that go on. Like, we can't just now deny Jan Blachowicz's chances against Jon Jones, because if Israel Adesanya got his hand raised, everyone would be talking about how Israel Adesanya now has a legit chance to beat Jon Jones. I think Jan Blachowicz equally has that legit chance, and I think he has more of a chance. I think he has more of a chance than Israel Adesanya. He's got great grappling. Adesanya got outstruck by Jan Blachowicz for those first 3 rounds, and again, I thought Adesanya was going to give Jon Jones trouble on the feet, and now I'm starting to piece some things together. European Muay Thai World Champion, 91 kg and above. Polish Muay Thai World Champion, 91 kg and above. 91 kg and above World Muay Thai Champion, Jan Blachowicz, might be really good at the sport of MMA, maybe? I don't know. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's shown that his grappling has improved as well, and we've seen guys like Dominic Reyes be able to stuff the takedowns of Jon Jones. I believe it will be a stand-up matchup between these two men. Jon Jones, Jan Blachowicz, I reckon we'd see a stand-up fight. I don't think Jon Jones would be able to get Jan Blachowicz to the ground. I haven't seen Jon Jones really be able to get too many fighters to the ground recently. I know he came back and looked good against Gustafsson in a rematch, landed a groin shot in that fight, but he looked good against Gustafsson in a rematch, took him down, did some work. The Smith fight was a little bit, it was Anthony Smith. It was a little bit like Smith was shelling up on the ground. Jon Jones won the fight very clearly, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a phenomenal performance by Jon Jones, I'm sure we can all agree, but it was a good win as a champion. Thiago Santos fight. Now, I know a lot of people are going to mention that Thiago Santos beat Jan Blachowicz, but I would argue that Jan Blachowicz fought maybe the best Thiago Santos we were ever going to see, because Jones fought that man limping around on one leg. There's no denying that. I know that Jones inflicted that injury by checking a kick of Thiago Santos, but those injuries don't happen often, and Thiago Santos was literally limping around on one leg against Jon Jones and still went to a split decision. Now, do I believe that Jon Jones won that fight? I thought Jon Jones won 3 of those rounds pretty clearly, and you can argue maybe 4, but it's up for debate, and maybe they saw Thiago Santos land a couple of shots that didn't really land, and someone gave Thiago Santos the fight. It was a very close fight, don't get me wrong. Jon Jones won the fight, but again, a limping around Thiago Santos took Jon Jones to a split decision, guys. And then again, in the Dominic Reyes fight, we don't fucking learn. And Jon Jones is like a 4-1 favourite or something ridiculous like that. No one gives Dominic Reyes a chance other than me. I think I made a video about it as well. But Dominic Reyes went out there, and we all know what happened here. He beat Jon Jones. He did, okay? And I have eyes, and I have a brain, and it works. And I have the right amount of chromosomes as well, might I add. I believe that Dominic Reyes beat Jon Jones in those first 3 rounds on the feet pretty fucking clearly, without a doubt in my mind. There is not even kind of... With other fights, like with Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz, I can argue round 3 for Adesanya. Round 1, I thought Jan Blachowicz secured that as well as round 2. But like, there's arguments. I think Dominic Reyes pretty clearly won those first 3 rounds against Jon Jones on the feet. And Jon Jones in the later rounds, yeah, put on a bit of pressure. But Dominic Reyes, in my opinion, if he had known that he wasn't getting scored those rounds, I think he would have put a little bit more of a pace on Jon Jones in those later rounds, because Jones was winning the rounds, but it was more like Dominic Reyes was just scooting around the outside. I've won 3 rounds, so long as I don't get 10-8'd or finished, I'll be fine in this fight to win a decision. And Jon Jones gets the decision off of the last 2 rounds, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but I saw Dominic Reyes beat Jon Jones. I then saw that same Dominic Reyes that considered himself the people's champion and considered himself the man that beat Jon Jones, because he did and we all watched it happen. I then watched him get molested by Jan Blachowicz. And it wasn't nice to watch for a Dominic Reyes. I was big on Dominic Reyes after he beat Jon Jones. Like, I know Jon Jones got his hand raised and the belt around his waist, but Dominic Reyes won the fight 3-2, and that's just how it is. Even if he didn't, it was a razor-close fight that could go either way, even in a Jon Jones' fans' eyes. And to see Jan Blachowicz just dominate him, I need to take these fights into consideration and not just put it down to the legendary Polish power. He's got fucking legit skills, and he's honed them after years of grinding in this game of MMA, and he's found his late prime that he never had before. And I want to talk about this as well, because a lot of people talk about prime. Not many fighters really drastically change in the way that they're built physically when they start to lose in their career. I know some fighters do, but Aldo's still in legit shape. You know what I mean? Like, he's past his prime, but it's not about the athletics of it. It's like, I feel like it's about hunger. He doesn't have the same grit to gut down in those later rounds against Holloway. Talking about Aldo, by the way, still. He still looks in physical peak shape. And I know that he's younger than Jan Blachowicz, but Jan Blachowicz doesn't seem to be changing in terms of how good of shape he's in. He's always in the same level of shape. I think he's just found the hunger part of his career to now go, I can be world champion, I can make the millions. And I think Jon Jones' prime is a lot to do with him being off roids, because he's definitely fading at this point in his career. But I feel like he's got the millions. It's just another title defense at light heavyweight for Jan Blachowicz. This is, I can cement myself top 5 GOATs of all time if I beat Israel Adesanya and Jon Jones, and I defend against Glover Teixeira in the meantime, and then maybe I have a chance to go up to heavyweight and solidify myself as a GOAT. That would be a crazy turn of events. Jan Blachowicz has the hunger right now in his career to really make a statement and put his name in the sport, and he already kind of did that against Israel Adesanya. You know, he definitely did that. But after watching what he did to Dominic Reyes, Reyes had no fucking chance. Dominated Jones in the first 3 rounds. Close fight, don't get me wrong. Jones landed some shots here and there. Very clearly outdid Jones on the feet in the first 3 rounds. I believe Jan Blachowicz versus Jon Jones will take place on the feet. And he destroyed Dominic Reyes. And he outstruck Israel Adesanya. And he beat him in the later rounds. And now, what's different about him than any other light heavyweight contender? Not many light heavyweights that are on the come up have the experience of going 5 rounds before they take on Jon Jones. And that's what you always see in these fights that Jon Jones has in the light heavyweight division. In his last 3 that he's had, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and also Dominic Reyes, they have experience going the distance. They have booked 5-round bouts, but it's very rare that they've gone all 5 rounds, had the experience in the championship rounds, and the narrative in Jon Jones' defenses is always, oh, but how are they going to do in the championship rounds? Because we haven't seen it yet. Dominic Reyes gets booked for 5 rounds against Chris Weidman, KOs him in the first round. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Jan Blachowicz just gathered that experience. First time going 5 rounds. He was outstriking Gustafsson in their fight as well, way back in the day in his career when he was a nobody and 1-4 in the UFC and looking to be cut, and he had a couple of losses here and there. This was a different time that he lost to Gustafsson. He was doing a little bit better than he was at the start of his career, but still, Alexander Gustafsson got outstruck by Jan Blachowicz in that fight, had to use his takedowns. And now that Jan Blachowicz seems to have addressed the takedown issues, and Jon Jones's takedowns are getting less and less effective as his years go on, I think the gap has evened, and they'll be on the feet, and Jan Blachowicz will outstrike him. Jon Jones throws great leg kicks, really good leg kicks, don't get me wrong. Jan Blachowicz showed in his last fight against Israel Adesanya, who I thought was maybe the best striker in the sport that we had to offer. He showed he can check all of those kicks. He can stay patient. He can play the chess game. We see Dominic Reyes go out there against Chris Weidman, get a KO in the first round, do something crazy against OSP as well, where he just mops the floor with him the entire time until the end. We don't see him play that chess game like we did with Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz can play the chess game that Jon Jones plays with his opponents, plus he's got the power, plus he's got more reach than any of Jon Jones's last 3 opponents who all were able to land on his chin many times. He's got a bigger reach than Dominic Reyes, bigger reach than Anthony Smith by far as well, bigger reach than Thiago Santos. I feel like he's a problem for Jon Jones, and I put a poll out on my community tab, and I think the polls of MMA channels are a true way to tell who has hardcore fans of the sport and who has casual fans of the sport, because I've been seeing some 50-50 polls for Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland, and that's a true sign that your fucking subscription base is full of fucking casuals. My community tab, a poll went out 3 days ago. Who do you think wins in a hypothetical matchup between Jon Jones and Jan Blachowicz? 3,300 people voted, which is crazy. Thank you very much. 53% Jon Jones, 47% Jan Blachowicz. The public perception is changing, and if they did fight each other, who would be the fucking 2-1 favourite at least? Jon Jones. And everyone will be talking about how Jon Jones, his movement's going to be too much, and he's just Jon Jones. He's on a different level, even though we've just seen him beaten by Dominic Reyes and went to a split decision with a one-legged Thiago Santos. He's still Jon Jones. He just didn't really care about those title defenses where all of his fucking legacy was on the line, because we'll just start saying that about Jon Jones. Anytime he has a close performance, he just didn't care. Anytime Jan Blachowicz loses, the other guy's just a fucking world beater. He's crazy. Not the other way around, though. It's weird, man. I feel like people are starting to see through it and realising that Jan Blachowicz got a real legit chance, and he would be a 2-1 underdog at least, I reckon. He'd be plus 200. At least. And I think he would beat Jon Jones. And I would definitely pick him to beat Jon Jones as well, because if this fight does happen, it would be under the sort of parameters that Jon Jones moved up to the heavyweight division, lost to Ngannou, looks to reconcile in the light heavyweight division, and Jan Blachowicz is just beating Glover Teixeira, who arguably is going to shoot a lot of takedowns on him. And if he beats Glover Teixeira and shows that he can defend all of his takedowns, I'm picking Jan Blachowicz. I'm picking him to win. I think he's just reached his pinnacle of the way he is, and I think he's in his prime in terms of skill and everything right now. Maybe not in terms of age or chin and stuff like that, but Jon Jones is hardly gonna chin him at light heavyweight. I mean, it's been a very long time since I've seen Jon Jones chin someone, maybe ever in his career, but I think Jan Blachowicz beats him, man. I don't give a fuck. I saw him defend all of the takedowns against Luke Rockhold, all of the takedowns against Jacare Souza for 5 rounds. He's got 2 fights where he's gone 5 rounds and played a slow-paced fight. I think that really benefits him here, and I think he would beat Jon Jones relatively easy. So that's where I'm at right now in my brain. If they ever do make that fight, I'm picking Jan Blachowicz, and I think he does win. I'm just going to start trusting in not the legendary Polish power, the legendary Polish skill, I think, is there to be trusted now. And I think it would be a stand-up fight and he would win it. He's got 5-round experience. Longest reach since Gustafsson. And Gustafsson's a tall guy, so sometimes when they're a shorter opponent, it's a little bit different when they've got a longer reach, you know what I mean? Because like we see this with Volkanovski in the featherweight division. Harder to get on the inside of a guy who's shorter than you, especially when they have a longer reach as well. Jon Jones has that extra reach, but again, Dominic Reyes was really fucking lighting him up, and Jan Blachowicz destroyed Dominic Reyes. I'm taking that into consideration. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Jan Blachowicz, legendary Polish skill, will someday beat Jon Jones if they ever do fight. Click that button up there. See you later, and argue me your discussion for why you think Jon Jones wins in the comments below. He's off roids. It's obvious. Goodbye. And go fuck yourself. No, don't go fuck yourself. Subscribe and stuff. I didn't mean to be rude at the end. Fuck. See you later. I love you all.